Promises now with Richard Johnson from Queen Mary University. Thanks for staying with us, sir. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
As Shirley alluded to there, back when Joe Biden was a candidate for the presidency in 2020, he promised there would be no more drilling on federal lands. That's a quote. So, and he is a big supporter of action on climate change, isn't he? So why are we seeing this U-turn now, do you think?
The Biden administration has been emphasizing that this decision was not one that was without constraints. And what I mean by that is there's a legal context to this that goes well before the Biden administration. Biden's Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, issued a video yesterday explaining that this decision was the consequence of past decisions. So in 1999, the Clinton administration leased the land to ConocoPhillips. They've been given permits for other work on that land over that time that gives them a legal basis to put in a petition for a permit that was initially granted by the Trump administration. Then the courts delayed it, and then the Biden administration, in effect, has had to implement the kind of legal process that was ongoing. This, of course, is difficult because, as you say, Biden made this political promise in 2020. Environmentalists are a core constituency of the Democratic Party. When Biden came in on his first day as president, he signed an executive order banning the leasing of for new oil and gas extraction on federal lands. That was then overturned in the courts. So he's up against it. There's a legal system that's baked in through years of legislation and past precedent and judicial decisions that can box him in to a certain extent, unless he could pass significant legal reform through Congress, which is not going to be very likely when the Republicans control the House of Representatives.
Indeed, and clearly there are environmental activists who are really angry about this decision made by Biden. But I wonder actually how big a political storm you think this will be, because I note all three lawmakers who do represent Alaska in Congress support the drilling. They say mostly because they do want to bring in investment to the area.
In terms of presidential politics, Alaska is not in a tremendously significant state. It is a low population state. It has 3 electoral votes. Biden actually performed better than any Democrat in Alaska's history since the 1960s. In the last presidential election, the Democrats won the House seat in Alaska last year for the first time since the 1970s. So there's a little bit of a slight Democratic Party revival, and perhaps Biden is conscious of that and maybe wants to see how well he can do there. But that, I think, is not in of itself enough to explain what's going on here. Biden is thinking of politically crucial actors in the Democratic Party more generally, including people like Joe Manchin, that moderate senator in West Virginia, who've been putting pressure on Biden to basically ride 2 horses. Yes, support renewables, but also to allow the continuation of a degree of fossil fuel extraction. That was baked into the Inflation Reduction Act last year. There was a lot of the headlines about all of the investment for climate tackling, and that was a great achievement. But Joe Manchin got into that bill that when the federal government opens up land to be leased for wind farms, for example, it also has to open up equivalent land for fossil fuel extraction. So there's a bit of a poison pill there, and Biden is trying to balance these two, the moderates and the environmentalist wings of the Democratic Party.
And how do you think he will try to justify this to that more left-wing, eco-friendly wing of his party?
He has been doing quite a bit on climate action in other respects. So the Biden administration has put restrictions on various mining practices, for example, have put restrictions on logging in Alaska itself. And this announcement yesterday came with it the promise of protection of many acres of land and water. But critics would say, look, these protections that Biden has put in, they don't have as strong a legal foundation as some of the legal advantages that the fossil fuel companies have. And so if, say, the Republicans win in 2 years' time, a lot of those protections that Biden announced yesterday, which we really haven't seen the details of yet, could go quite quickly. Ultimately, I think Biden is concluding that environmentalists see, prefer the devil they know and see Biden as a friend with problems, and they're going to ultimately support him over a Republican who would be much more strongly in favor of further fossil fuel extraction and much less concerned about even offering any concessions on some of these environmental protections. Biden brought the US back into the Paris Climate Accords, for example. He did do things that reverse some Trump administration practices. It may not be enough for some environmentalists, but at the end of the day, if the choice is between Joe Biden and a Republican candidate for president, I suspect they'll be choosing Joe Biden.
Richard Johnson from Queen Mary University, thank you, sir, very much indeed for your time and your analysis today.
Thank you.